Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Breakthrough Project Accounting for Microsoft Dynamics GP. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us. There are a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so that we can unmute you or submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We'll be answering questions throughout and also following up afterwards to answer any additional questions. So at this point, Jeff, I believe we're ready to transition over to you to cover session objectives.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, and thanks to everyone on the line. We appreciate you taking the time. We know you're all busy. Our objective for today is to give you a peek at the Dynamics GP Project Accounting module and show you how it can support your business by capturing both tangible and intangible costs of your business endeavors. So a number of different types of organizations can use project accounting, and that includes anyone from professional service organizations to light construction to those who just have small projects that they want to track within their organization. So hopefully you'll get a good view today, and we are more than happy to follow up with you afterwards if you have questions or if you'd like to maybe take a deeper dive. So our agenda for today is as follows. The first thing we wanted to talk about is module integration. This is important because we want you to know that project accounting fits right into the entire modular Dynamics GP solution, and so we'll talk about what modules and how, and show you screenshots even of how project accounting works within Dynamics GP. We're going to talk about project structure so that you get a good idea of how you would put together a project, and then we're going to talk about transaction types. So what kinds of transactions are available inside of Dynamics GP to affect your projects. And we feel like this is very important and very timely in regards to some changes that have gone on over the most recent releases, including GP 2013 Release 2 and GP 2015, as that there are some new self-service functionality additions that you'll need to know about. Also, we'll talk about reporting and at a high level and talk about that. And then I have a section here called tips and tricks, and really it's just one tip that I wanted to make sure you were aware of, and so we'll go through that, and then as Cheryl said, we'll try to field all of your questions, or as many as we can, during the presentation as well. So Cheryl, I'll assume that you'll just let me know when someone has a question, and we'll take it at that time.
Sounds good, Jeff.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was just module integration, and I'm going to show you some of this as well. But the key module integration points for the project accounting module include the general ledger. From a general ledger perspective, the types of integrations will be updating work in process and making sure that you can reconcile that back to your general ledger. We'll also talk a little bit about how the project can be defined for the different facets of project and how it then links back to the project accounting module. Purchase order processing. Dynamics GP will give you the opportunity to enter purchase orders, and it will allow you to associate those purchase orders with projects. And another term that you'll hear me talk about is called cost categories, so that you can think of the cost category as a sub facet of your project, maybe a phase of a project, and so we'll talk about that as well. You also then have the ability to integrate with the inventory module. So for any of you that are looking to consume inventory that you maintain into a job or a project, certainly can do that. And then lastly, the payroll module, as the project accounting module will give you the facility to enter time, process it through the project accounting module, and flow into the payroll module as you need. So first thing I wanted to start off with, and we're going to go through some screens to kind of put this into some sensible perspective, but there really are four major pieces of an individual project in project accounting. So first of all, there is a customer, and I want to step back from that for a moment. Project accounting can actually be used in a variety of different ways. It can be used specifically to track costs, or it can be to track costs, but also to bill for the project work that's being done. You'll see how this gets set up here in a few minutes, but you can have internal customers set up as well as external customers in regards to tracking a project. The next facet is what's called contracts. And a contract really allows you to group multiple projects together. And if you are billing your projects, then you'll have the ability to bill at an individual project level or at a contract level. So the contract-to-project relationship can be one-to-one, or you can have one contract to many projects. And I'll show you some screens that will indicate that here in just a couple minutes. And then lastly, we have what we call a cost category. And a cost category can actually be a variety of different things, but think of it as, if I'm a professional service firm, one cost category might be training, it might be consulting, it might be process review, it could be a variety of things. A cost category could also be, if I'm building a house, it could be foundation versus electrical versus plumbing as another example that you might, just kind of a commonplace example of what a cost category might indicate. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the functionality inside of Dynamics GP and talk about how this project structure all fits together. So the first thing I wanted to do is to take you to the contract maintenance window. So we always start off with a contract maintenance, and you'll notice that the first thing that the system asks us for is a customer. And like I said, depending on whether this is an internal or an external customer, you can either make this your own organization, or you can make it individual customers that you do business with. And so just to give you some perspective on that, Socius, as a professional service firm, uses the project accounting module. So yes, we do eat our own dog food, and we use the project accounting module to track all of our time for every employee within the organization. So we set up some ground rules in regards to these projects. We will have internal projects, and those internal projects might be, for instance, Cheryl Daniels, who's on the call with us. Cheryl works in our marketing department, and she may be working on some marketing efforts, but still wants to be able to track her efforts, her costs involved with those projects, so she can enter her time against a project of that nature. Or we may have one of our consultants that may work with multiple customers during a week, whether it be a support interaction or a new implementation of Dynamics GP. And so we can actually set up our individual customers and assign projects to those individual customers. So you'll notice here that we also then assign a contract. The system requires a contract, and like I said, you can have a one-to-one or one-to-many relationship. You'll provide a contract ID, a name, and a contract number. There are a variety of other things that can get attached to this. So if this is a billable activity or contract, then you can set it up as either time and materials or a fixed cost project. And you can also define such things as your billing methodology. So how do we bill? What do we and how do we recognize revenue? So if you're using a time and materials type project, you'll have the ability to recognize the revenue as you bill or as time is entered, etc. So there are going to be different options for you in regards to that type of activity. So there are then a variety of other fields that are added here just to allow you to better report and analyze your jobs. So as an example, we have a flow within our organization where on these individual projects we'll have a business manager that we assign, and that business manager would be responsible for reviewing the time and expenses that are a part of a project before an invoice would be sent to our customers. So it just allows you to produce reports and assign activities to the individual users. And then lastly, you'll notice down here, this is where we can assign our projects. So as I said, we have a contract, and then we have the ability to assign multiple projects to that contract. Like I said, it could be a one-to-one or it can be a one-to-many. You'll notice that there are some things that apply down here too that we'll get into more details on in a little bit, such as what is the contract amount. We have the ability to facilitate change orders in our projects. Some of you may have experienced that as we've done projects and then we want to add some additional functionality or make some changes to the way we do things. So we'll have the ability to do that. The next piece that I wanted to talk about then is now we're at the project level. And there's a couple things that we can get into more detail on. So first of all, I wanted you to be comfortable that you can actually track your individual costs and billings as you go on a project. So you can see, now this is a brand new project in this example, but I have a project amount of $60,000. I have a beginning date, an ending date, and then you can also see that the system will have my costs incurred to date, my billings to date. Also, the system integrates with receivables so that you can see any cash receipts that have been applied to that individual project. The system can do a calculation of cost percentage completed, and you can also measure profitability. So one of the key pieces of functionality here is for you to be able to see what you've billed and what you've spent so that you know whether you're making money on these jobs. One thing that I don't really indicate in slides here today, but wanted you to be aware of, is if you have a lot of jobs that are similar, you can also set up templates so that it eliminates your ability, your necessity to end up setting up additional unique jobs every time. So you can just almost, in essence, do a copy. Okay. So as we continue down the path, you can see that once we've gone from the contract screen where we were assigning the customer, we have the contract, we assign projects to that, we went to the project window, and then within a project we have the ability to set up what are called cost categories. So this is a good example of cost categories. So on a consulting project we might have consulting, we might have design work, we might have project management, we might have a review process, and then also we may have airfare or those types of things if we're traveling for this particular project. So each of these individual cost categories or phases can be set up, and they can be set up with beginning and ending dates. They can be set up with unit costs that are assigned. You can also then budget the quantity. So an example here might be on this particular project. For consulting, we have budgeted 50 hours, and you can see that our unit cost is going to be $35. Thus, our total cost would be $1,750. As you go down through here, you can set up as many of these cost categories as is appropriate, and the system will then have the individual cost totals. One of the things I want you to make note of is that there's a baseline total and then a forecast total. Your forecast may end up being the same as your baseline. The situation where it wouldn't be is if you have change orders. So the baseline will always stay the same, but then the forecast will allow you to show the differences based on change orders that may be appropriate to that project. Okay, so we've basically talked about the project structure from a customer, a contract, a project, and now a cost category basis. So when we budget, we have the ability to budget at for a particular period or a group of periods. So that $1,750 that you saw for consulting actually came from us defining what periods we want to include that. You may remember that our cost category date was assigned as a beginning and ending of 4/12, so therefore everything's falling into 50 hours on the 12th. That may be multiple consultants that may be involved in this, but you can ultimately see the baseline, the forecast, and the actual. So as hours are actually entered and consumed, they will update the actual. If you make a change order, then that will actually make adjustments to the baseline and therefore become a different number wherever appropriate. All right, so then lastly what I wanted to show you is then down to, there's a couple key pieces here that I think make this important. So number one is that a cost category gets assigned a transaction type. And so this is important, and I'll show you the transaction entry windows that are appropriate within project accounting, and that kind of ties back to then how it ties into the rest of the accounting system. So in the transaction usage, you can actually see that consulting fees are based on timesheet entry. Okay, and then again, just to kind of reiterate, we have our baseline, our forecast, and our actuals, and you'll be able to see that at the individual cost category level. One of the things that's important for you to know is that you can define posting accounts at each of the individual levels we've talked about. So they can be assigned at the cost category, and that is truthfully the most frequently used that I've seen, which means that each individual cost category will determine, for instance, which WIP account and so forth that the system will post to in the general ledger. We can also, for labor, we have the ability to define rate tables so that even if we're not using the payroll module, individual employees' costs or payroll can be included in the cost of a project. All right, so in essence then, my attempt there was to make sure that you have a pretty good idea of, the general structure of a project, and as you can see, this actually will make a significant change to the way you do your work, and we'll see that as we go down through the individual transaction types that you may not do today. So I'm going to back up for just a second before we delve into transaction types and just kind of go back to the idea. I'm going the wrong way. Let me go back up. I just wanted to talk about what are alternatives to using project accounting and maybe why you would use project accounting. So one of the great things about project accounting is that you really can enter a variety of different types of transactions, and you can actually distribute the responsibility for those types of transactions across your organization. So as an example, I have the timesheet functionality, so individuals can enter their time, which we may need them to do anyway for payroll purposes, or if we're doing this some other manual way. We also have the ability to enter purchase orders and associate those with a job so that we can show committed cost, and then we can actually show actual cost as the goods and the invoices are received against the purchase order. So, and then obviously the payroll cost as well. So it's really important to see how that works. Plus, the last piece is the ability to then attach inventory to a project, and so if you actually maintain an inventory in your organization, you have the ability to then pick items out of inventory which have been assigned a cost through your purchasing process and then assign those costs to the individual projects. So let's take a look at some of the entry windows. What I'm going to cover is the purchase orders, the time and expense, the billing, just to show you some of these windows so that you get a good comfort level with them. So first of all, this is a purchase order, and I would assume that maybe some of you already use the purchase order module even if you're not using project accounting. And so probably the unique thing that you'll notice is now when you enter a project, you'll see that there is a project number and a cost category for each line item. So a couple things to keep in mind is that you can still issue POs and not assign them to a project in a cost category simply by leaving those fields blank. So it's not required. So if you're ordering office supplies and you don't necessarily want to include those costs against a project because they don't apply there, then you can leave those fields blank. But for those that you do want to include against a project, then you can enter that project number, you can enter that cost category, and the system will then immediately, as soon as the purchase order is released from the status of new to released, so when you print the PO, it will then allocate those costs, so in this case $70,000, to the project as a committed cost. So it doesn't go as an actual cost until you work it through the flow of receiving the goods and then actually getting invoiced for those. So this is how your purchasing process may be changed based upon the fact that you're now using project accounting as your tool to track these costs. I will say that we do have a number of clients that if they only have a few projects, they use things like the chart of accounts, so they'll put a project number in a segment. We also have some clients that will use this for the analytical accounting module. But as I said, the big thing is the variety of different types of transactions that really fit into a normal workflow are better in project accounting if there's any kind of volume that you need to do. Plus the calculation of WIP and different billing methods, etc. So the next thing I wanted to show you, in fact, Cheryl, do we have any questions at this point?
It doesn't look like we do right now, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. So the next thing I wanted to talk about then is just the project time and expense timesheet entry. And I just wanted to point this out because this is actually new functionality that was originally released in GP 2013 R2, and there's been some enhancement to it in GP 2015. So this came with I guess the sunsetting of the life cycle of the business portal. So if any of you are using project accounting and time and expense using the business portal, if you're on 2013, that's fine. If you're on 2015, the business portal is no longer in existence, and so you'll need to actually transition from the business portal to this new timesheet entry functionality. Now, I wanted to kind of elaborate on that a little bit because many of our clients that are using project accounting may have 100 employees entering time, and that's all they do. And so this new functionality actually resides in GP. So we actually have the ability to have what are called self-service licenses as well as a full or limited license. So traditionally, we would have a full license for anyone that needs to go into Dynamics GP to enter data, to review data, to print reports, etc. And with 2013, a new license was released that's called a limited license, which basically allows you to do things like timesheet entry, but it also has some read-only functionality within Dynamics GP. So if I'm designated as a limited license, I can go in and I can actually look at things that I'm given access to, and security still plays a role in all of this. But I also then have the ability to enter some time. I can enter time. I can enter expenses against a project, etc. So please keep this in mind. If you're using the business portal, or if you've heard of the business portal, understand that that no longer exists with Dynamics GP 2015, and that's actually the screens that I'm showing you. The same is true with the expense entry, so you'll notice that there's a similar window here. This is the interface that a user would see. so that you can enter the employee, the expense report, and you can actually assign each line item on an expense report to a particular project. Therefore, the costs get allocated to the project appropriately, and the employee can get reimbursed through accounts payable appropriately. So everything works just the way you would expect it to. One other thing I wanted to say about the licensing is with the release of GP 2013, Microsoft also released what's called a web client. So for those in the field that maybe don't have a workstation with Dynamics GP loaded on it, and as an alternative to things like a terminal server, you can actually access Dynamics GP via a web browser. And so sometimes people will actually use this type of functionality and also use that in coordination with the so using the web client with the ability to enter these transactions. So one other thing is that's important for this is that workflow can be assigned to this individual functionality. So we have the ability to define approvals on timesheets and expenses before it actually updates the project. And so there is some new functionality that you may want to investigate. I think we've done a couple webinars that have been related to the release of GP 2015, even 2013, and the new workflow functionality. But if you have questions on that, please reach out to either your account manager or myself, and we'll make sure, or your consultant that you work with on a regular basis, and we'll make sure that you get more information about all of this licensing that's changing over the last couple versions. All right, and then the last piece here is then our billing. One of the things that we have the ability to do within the Dynamics GP module is we can bill for the work that we do. And so in our organization, we actually do some things where we actually have a process where people review timesheets and review expenses, and once those are reviewed and approved, then the billing is then accumulated and sent on over to the customer. The one thing that's nice about billing and project accounting is the fact that it is you can have a variety of different formats. So if you want to assign different formats to different customers, you have the ability to do that. Or if there's different types of services you do that need different types of invoices, you'll be able to do that as well. So the nice thing about all of this is your ability to actually see the process through, be flexible in regards to your output, and also the frequency of your billing. So I can bill one invoice on the fly, or I can set it up so that it, in fact, in our case, we bill semi-monthly. So we'll bill we have a mid-month billing and an end-of-month billing, and so all of the time that's been accumulated after it's been reviewed can be accumulated and then sent to our clients. And so many organizations like ours do that very same process. Okay, I'll just stop for another moment, and if anyone has any questions in regards to transaction types, any questions on the new functionality and the release of the new time and expense options versus what was there before, or any questions about allocating inventory or purchase orders to a project.
Jeff, we do have a question.
Okay.
Does it pick up non-PO costs from AP?
Yes, but it's handled a little differently. Everything, you'll notice that on the integrated modules I did not include payables, but you do have the ability to enter line item costs through the project accounting module and assign them to a project, through the through the purchase order receiving functionality without, but you can't enter them directly into payables. So it's handled a little differently, but an individual invoice that actually was not a part of a PO can still be attributed to a project. And I can once we get through this slide deck, if we have time, I can bolt out to do that.
Looks like that's it for now.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to project accounting is really your ability to do reporting. So what I have in front of you here is a set of dashboards. So reporting becomes a really very, very important in regards to how we use project accounting. One of the things that Microsoft has done with project accounting is kind of left it wide open. There are a variety of out-of-the-box reports, but because everybody does projects a little bit differently, what we have found across the board is that typically people need to create their own reports that are geared toward their type of business. So as an example, this might be something that you would see at Socius or a professional services firm. So this is an individual employee can log in to a portal. This we happen to use SQL reporting services to do these reports. But you can see that we have dashboards around annual performance. So where do we stack up versus our annual goals? So in many professional service firms, a consultant may be assigned a certain goal for hours to be billed to their clients, and you can see through a variety of different graphic presentations that you can choose, you can show that. So in this case, I can see that annually I am expected to bill 1,300 hours. Right now, so far this year, I'm at about 400 hours. Therefore, I know exactly how far I have to go. Another example that we have here is for that consultant is maybe how is their time spent. So you can see here that 70% of this consultant's time is spent on client activity, but 30% is set up and tracked on admin and sales activities. So this becomes very important as you're evaluating people's performance is how are they spending their time? Are they spending their time appropriately based upon their role within the organization? So in our example, here at Socius, we actually have people enter all of their time no matter what, whether they're attending a webinar like you are right now, whether they're going to a training class off-site, whether they're on paid time off or vacation. They enter all of that time, and it then goes in the appropriate buckets based upon how you've defined it. So we actually have an administration project, and then within that we have cost categories, as we mentioned earlier, that allow people to enter against those cost categories like training, like PTO, like sick time, etc. And therefore we have a really good picture of everyone's time. And we have not just our consultants, but everyone within the organization. So that Cheryl and I can meet with our supervisors and they can talk about, I see that you've spent this much time on marketing efforts or trade shows or whatever it is, however you decide to break it down. So a couple other things that are important. So in this example, we have financial analysis. So one of the things, if you're a professional service firm, is making sure that you're doing good work and that you're only writing down a small percentage of your time. So you can see here that we can have quarter-to-date write-downs and a percentage of overall billable hours, and people can be evaluated based upon that as well, making sure that they're doing good work. And then also, where are you spending your time from a project perspective? So you can see in this example which projects are, in this case, in this consultant's example, which projects are they spending most of their time. And then even we have some things like utilization. So if there are goals around how much of your time should be spent in consulting versus administration, you can actually get more of a red, yellow, green view from this particular perspective, as well as paid time off. So this is an example of a dashboard that was built using SharePoint and SQL reporting services. Like I said, there's a number of reports that are right out of the box that are more traditional GP reports. This next report I wanted to show you is an example of a smart list that we've created. And this we use the tool called Smart List Builder. I don't know if any of you own that tool today, but it is a very valuable tool in allowing you to create more advanced reports using Smart Lists. So you can see in this example that we're able to show our budgeted, our forecasted, our actual costs, our committed costs, any issued POs, etc. And so this report becomes very important in regards to being able to analyze each individual project. I have a number of these, so I can also do forecast versus actual. I can also show reports that might show my work in process by project. As you can see here, out of the box there are a number of reports that all start with PA, and it shows you anything from timesheets to just what are projects, you know, what contracts do I have, what cost categories do I have. So, you know, really, I think just to re-emphasize with project accounting, I think from a reporting perspective, it's really important for us to be able to define what we need to see, what drivers are most important for us so that we get the most benefit from the output. And then that helps us decide what tool is most useful for that. Okay, so that's reporting. One of the last things I wanted to talk about is, and I don't know if this applies to you folks, but I thought I would at least go through it, is many times what we have found is people will actually, especially organizations that may have construction, like they build their own buildings, they do site clearing, things like that. And at the end of the day, when that project's complete, that becomes an asset. And so one of the things that people have asked for is what can I do when I close a project and I got all of my costs collected for that job and it now is a building or it's now an asset that we use internally. How do I then integrate that directly to fixed assets? And so this is just a set of steps that you can follow that will allow you to actually turn a closed project into a fixed asset. And it leverages the ability of fixed assets to integrate with general ledger, really. So ultimately, and this is a little detailed for those of you who aren't using project, but the idea is that you can go through, you can create what's called a miscellaneous log entry. You can select standard as the transaction type, and you guys can read through this. But basically, you can create an asset using these steps. And we've found that this has been a real time saver for many of our clients because otherwise they have to go in and create a new asset, and oftentimes that's a disconnect that people forget to do. So please feel free to use this tip if this applies to the way you do business. Okay, so these are just a couple of the screenshots that I wanted to make sure. So as you go through this, make sure you look at these screens and you can see how this all needs to be designed to make it work. So before Cheryl comes back, I guess I just wanted to just close by saying, you know, our hope today is that we could give you a nice look at a general overview of the project accounting module, what it brings to the table, what it can do for your business. Our feeling is that if your organization needs a better way to track costs, whether those are costs that you just need to know internally so that you can do better next time, or whether this is an external job that you're doing for a client and you want to bill it, this can streamline and also brings you the added advantage of being automatically integrated right into the rest of your accounting solution, saving you time, saving you efforts, and certainly lends itself to all of the different remote entry points that that you may need as people travel about doing these types of jobs. Last thing I wanted to say in regards to all of that is that the next goal with these new workflow tools is the ability to allow folks to enter time and expenses via a tablet or a phone, and you should see announcements as we move along through this year in regards to what I showed you earlier about time and expense entry. You should see announcements as we move closer toward the end of the year of the advent of some mobile tools to allow you to take even greater advantage of this. So with that, I guess I'll open it up to questions and let Cheryl kind of close the session and maybe give you guys a few extra minutes with your day today.
Sure, and just to remind everyone, you can either raise your hand and I can unmute your line, or you can type your question in the question box for Jeff to address. And the screen he has up today highlights a couple of events and upcoming promotions that we have on our site. Vertex is offering their tax form automation free of charge through June. You simply download your sales information from GP and upload it into Vertex, and it creates signature-ready PDF tax returns. Also, Jeff mentioned earlier E1. They are offering $500 off their SmartList Builder and SmartView, as well as a bundled pack through the end of June as well. And then a couple of upcoming events are Office 365 webinar series, which some of you were on the first. This is our second. And that's on May 7th. It's where we're taking a look at the impact of the age of the cloud is having on our work environments and how offices are deploying new technologies. And then our next GP monthly user webinar is on May 21st, and it'll be over fixed assets. So Jeff, if you want to pull up your next slide there that contains your contact information in case anybody has questions for you and wants to reach out afterwards. Looks like we don't have any questions right now, but Jeff and I will certainly stay on the call for a couple more minutes here in case there are any.
And I would just encourage you, if this looks like something that would be useful for you, or if you're using project accounting now and need some additional information or advice in regards to how to leverage it more effectively, feel free to reach out to us.